Howdy everyone, it's the fourth judge. We're back to do predictions for UFC Fight Night Serbia, Medic versus Rodriguez. Let's get right into it. So first, free my goat, Anthony Lionheart Smith. Not gonna lie guys, this slide was kind of made before the charges came out, so I'm not really sure if we want to free him. But I did want to bring up this amazing quote from TMZ. Was one of the best 185 and 205 pounders of MMA fighters of his generation, with a UFC record of 13-12. Our GOAT, we love him, free him, but let's get into it, guys. First up on the card, we have Stephanie Luciano versus Marina Spasic. Yeah, I think this is a pretty, a typical women's fight, a typical non-ranked women's fight. We have two women, one making their debut. I think it's going to be a tougher fight than the odds maybe put it out to be, but I kind of agree with the odds in a sense that I think Stephanie Luciano is going to get it done. Given she did go to a draw in the Contender Series, but she has more experience versus I was watching some film on Spasic, and her competition just doesn't seem as tough. And on top of that, they both look like juice to the gills. They looked gigantic. But yeah, I'm going with Luciano on this one. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the debut. Kind of like you were saying. Marina, watching her film,
Oh, Marina's the
it's
debut.
it's yeah, she's the debut. And it's kind of hard, like you said with her film. You're like,
Hmm.
it's the competition that you get in these other organizations versus even just a couple wins or a couple fights in the UFC. You can tell the difference.
Hmm.
But I just like the idea of the underdog here. It's a lot of the storyline behind some of these debut people on this entire card is going to be hometown advantage,
Hmm.
and I think that's going to play a factor. I think that jumping up to the UFC is a big competition jump, but I also think that it kind of drives you to do better kind of thing. And if you're going to jump up to the UFC to try to help kind of curb that, the under the lights for the first time nerves that we've talked about, put it in a hometown advantage. Like I think that's going to kind of curb that nervousness that she might feel. She's got, I think, maybe better stopping power
Hmm.
than Luciano has. Ground game is kind of unknown. That's going to be something that
Yeah.
I think we may end up seeing a little bit more of like grappling exchanges kind of thing on this fight. Durable, never been stopped other than I think it was a unanimous decision for her loss. So it's not like she's been stopped, and she's got that good knockout power. So I'm gonna rock with the home advantage debut and see what she does for her first fight in the UFC.
Nice, man. All right. Next up on the card, we have two debutees. We have Jovan Leka versus Alexander Poppeck, and I believe Jovan is also a hometown guy. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yep.
Awesome, yeah. I was leaning Poppeck when I first started to do some breakdowns, but then I realized, ooh, Poppeck really fights at light heavyweight, and he is a very mediocre light heavyweight in my opinion. Something I also wanted to bring up about Poppeck is that he lost on Contender Series back in 2019 to Jamal Hill. Hilarious. Think that's hilarious. At that time, Jamal Hill was legit, but still, just funny to see how long ago that was. But yeah, I think Jovan Levick is gonna get it, or Leka is gonna get it done here. He seems to have big power. He seems to have decent enough footwork for this weight class. So yeah, I see him stopping Poppeck in the first two rounds. Poppeck does not move that well in my opinion. I see him getting it done. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you completely here. Not only kind of same concept if I'm going to rock with that of debut and on home soil. He's the bigger guy. He's the true heavyweight,
Mm-hmm.
and moves well for a true heavyweight. You can get people who are weighing in at that 260 and they move like, hey, maybe you should be fine at 230, and it might help you a little bit more. He moves well for a big heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
He's also going to have a little bit of the age advantage. Pretty well rounded. His grappling skills are there. He has four subs, I believe. He's got knockout power. So I think that just kind of all around kind of base fighting skill. I'm going with Leka, and then you add on being a little bit younger, being a little bit bigger, and the
Yeah.
true heavyweight. I think this is a pretty uphill battle for Popek.
Yep. I agree with you, man. All right. Next up, we have Nina Milosevic versus Hailey Cowan. Yeah, I think I'm leaning Hailey Cowan. A little bit in me looks at her record and we're like, ooh, she really lost pretty much all of her UFC fights. But I was watching some film on Nina, and I really was not impressed. She gets hit a lot. She just kind of weathers through the storm, and I don't think Hailey Cowan's just gonna stand there and get beat up all the time. I think Pierre was just an instance that has really got that stopping power. I don't see that stopping power at this level for Nina. I know she has some KO and finishes on her class, but the people I was watching her fight did not seem, they'd seem like people Cowan would just run through. So I'm gonna go with the big underdog here, and I'm gonna go with Hailey Cowan to get her first UFC win. What do you think, man?
Again, I guess I'm going to stick with my debut and hometown advantage. There's at some point in this card, it's probably going to switch up for me, but
Yes.
it's, I mean, I get the idea of jumping up to the UFC is a pretty big jump. And again, I kind of agree with you that Nina didn't show, like, she showed good skills against people who wouldn't be signed to the UFC,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. The people she's beating, you wouldn't see coming in next fight night. So it's hard to put a whole lot of stock into those wins. But it's just going to be, again, her stand up is really good. She is the younger person. Cohen's on a 3 or 4 fight losing streak. It's just, it's hard to go with someone who maybe made it to the UFC, but isn't showing a whole lot of, real kind of projection to be
Hmm.
moving in the UFC and go against someone who shows skills and then it's the first time in the UFC.
Yeah.
She does have good takedown defense. In one of her more previous fights, maybe the Osman fight, she basically had to wrestle with her for like 4 minutes of the first round
Hmm.
in clinch, and then broke away immediately, got a takedown and some ground and pound. So it's like not only can she, defensively wrestle, but if she wants to take you down and get some points, then she can do that. So,
Hmm.
if she keeps Cohen, kind of at arm's distance, her punching is definitely, I think, her bigger strong suit, even though she's more of a decision person. Like you said, she doesn't have a lot of stopping power or anything like that. I think that's kind of how I see this one going. Nina to kind of, maybe win by points, get some takedowns mixed in randomly just to kind of go up on the cards, and then 15-minute kind of normal back and forth fight.
Hmm. Gotcha. All right, let's look at this next one. We have Mateusz Rebecki versus Kyle Prepolec. So yeah, first thing, man, they're doing Rebecki dirty having him this early on the card. I mean, I know he's coming off, what is it, 3 losses, right? Is it 3 losses? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
he's coming
it's
off.
either 3 or 4. I thought
Yeah.
the exact same thing. At first I was like, dang, I like Rebecki. He's
Hmm.
real low on this card. Then I started digging into his past few fights again. And I was
Yeah.
like, it's kind of shitter v shitter on
Hmm.
this. So I'm like, I could see the UFC hedging their bets here and be like, let's go ahead and just bury them a little bit. And if one of them pops off this, we'll move them up maybe. But
Yes, exactly. But I think the odds are kind of right on the money, man. I don't see much out of Kyle Prepolec. Like, I don't think Kyle Prepolec is an absolute can. I just do not think Prepolec is good in any sense. I think he's hardly decent. I think he's very finishable, and I think Mateusz Rebecki is going to do just that. I think he's going to finish this in the first or second round, try and get a statement win. That Grant Dawson loss is just embarrassing, man. That sub, winning most of that fight and then just deciding to go to the ground with them and then get subbed in the last round in the last couple of seconds. I think he needs to bounce back, and this is a perfect person for him to bounce back with. But yeah, man, what are you thinking?
yeah, I'm gonna completely agree with you with Rebecki. I think that this is another one where it's just he's a little bit better in pretty much all aspects.
Hmm.
Again, neither one of them are amazing by any means, but I think that Rebecki just kind of beats him a little bit in the stand up, beats him a little bit in the takedowns. One of the stats that I saw from Prepolec that I just thought was kind of funny to see was that he has 0 takedowns in his UFC career, which is just a weird, it happens. I'm not saying that that's, crazy for someone, but he has 0 takedowns out of 11 attempts. So it's not also like he's, a great kickboxer and just never even shoots. So he has none, where like, the odds are a little bit more skewed to that. He shot and just is terrible
Yes.
at taking people down
Hmm.
too. So yeah, I think that just with kind of the significant strike output coming from Rebecki, the takedowns that he has, as well as the takedown defense, I think that he uses his leg kicks really well, so he could even slow down Prepolec a little bit if he starts to try to move around the octagon and kind of run from Rebecki. I think I think we both kind of see this one going the same way, where it's just I don't know if I necessarily see early stoppage. I wouldn't necessarily be too surprised. Rebecki does have some knockouts and some submissions, but I think that this is just one of those. Rebecki should be up on the scorecards across 3 rounds.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Denis Buzukja versus Bogdan Grad. First thing I want to mention is, man, Bogdan Grad looks totally different than this picture here. He has a full head of hair. He's a little bit tan now. I think he's got a nice little mustache too. He used to
I
look like
know,
a little.
traveling out of like Miami, training out of Miami or
Yes,
something like that.
yes,
That's
I know
completely
it's changed
different.
him. Yeah, but he was my little Guskov. But God, after that, after last week, man, I don't want another Guskov. But nonetheless, I think this is a chance for Grad to bounce back. He's had nothing but really tough opponents, kind of in the UFC. Like Naimov isn't insane, but he's a solid fighter at the weight. And then Riley, I think, is going to be a problem in that weight class. So I think this is a good chance for him to bounce back. I don't think Buzukja has much. Obviously, I don't think he's god awful. But I think Grad has power and he can get Buzukja out of there. I think Buzukja is very hittable. He's coming off of a first round KO earlier this year. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Grad to get a knockout. Maybe he gets a sub. I know he has some subs in his record early on, but I see him getting this done by KO, TKO in the second or third round. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. Kind of like you said, Grad is 1-2, I believe, in the UFC, but he has some good competition under his belt, and it's just one of those. He's super pressure forward. Buzukja has some decent shots as well. Boxing is real kind of crisp, but it's hard to really kind of start stringing together good boxing combos or getting a lot of power on your shots when you're constantly being moved backwards because Grad's pressured you. So I kind of see this going the same way. Grad has 9 first round finishes. I think that this is just going to be one of those kind of pressure battles. Grad's not going to let up on him. I wouldn't be too surprised if this was like an early stoppage either. Just one of those, hey, I'm the more kind of awake fighter almost at the start of the fight. But yeah, I'm probably leaning Grad by at least a finish on this one. I think this is a good thing to kind of help jump him back on the right side of the tracks here.
Yep, 100% agree, man. All right, next up, we have mini-man Mark Vologdin versus debutee Borislav Nikolic. I think this is a short notice replacement. Borislav is. I think Mark Vologdin was supposed to fight Josias Muasa, but this got replaced. And I'm not super shocked to see Borislav an underdog, but I don't think people give enough credit to Mark Vologdin. I know he's short, but we've got to have some short kings, man. I think he's a tough dude, and I think he punches hard, and I think he's going to overwhelm Borislav here. I think he's just going to keep coming at him. And I know Borislav is good on the feet, but I don't see Borislav having enough to stop Mark Vologdin. I think the pressure is going to be too much, and Vologdin's going to get a finish. He's going to get this done in the first or second round, in my opinion. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on the other side here. I'm gonna go Borislav on this one. Again, I guess jumping back on that, home court advantage debut side. But I think that this one is almost gonna solely come down to one of those like who can keep the fight where they want. I think it's gonna come down to like, can Vologdin kind of pressure and overwhelm Borislav early. And if he doesn't, then I think Borislav's going to be able to kind of keep him at that range with being that longer fighter. Maybe mix in some takedowns. His takedown is pretty good. His grappling is definitely better. He's got better jiu-jitsu background. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing is, like you said, Vologdin's not he's not just a can. He likes to pressure. He's got some power. So I think as long as Borislav can kind of run away maybe for the first couple minutes, really kind of feel out his range, and then kind of start keeping him, at the end of his jab, mixing some takedowns. I'm going Borislav. I think the biggest X factor is going to be cardio on Borislav. You're coming in as a debut and short notice. So I think that's going to be the only X factor to him. Maybe you go Vologdin with power as his kind of his perk on that side, but I think Borislav just kind of beats him in all the other aspects. So I think that this is probably going to go 15. If it gets to the ground, then Borislav can definitely end it by a submission. But I don't know if you're knocking Mark out either. So
Yes, he's a tough dude, very tough dude. But yeah, let's get into the next one. All right, man, this one breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. Oban Elliott, the Welsh gangster, versus Michael Oliveira. I mean, man, what could have been Oban Elliott when he came into the UFC? Man, knocking out Rafael Hafez. I was like, yeah, man, I love this guy's style. Stand up, dude. It seemed like he had decent takedown defense, but then he runs into Cowan and just gets mauled. And then he just blows the fight to Jonathan Mikhailov. So I've got to hop off the Oban wagon, and I'm going with Michael Oliveira. Dude looks like he puts concrete in his gloves, man. He punches hard, and I think he's going to get this done. I think Elliott's defense gets sloppy. I'd love to be wrong. I really, if I'm going to be wrong on any fight pick, I really hope it's this one. I hope Oban Elliott comes out there and impresses us. But right now I'm going Michael Oliveira, KO, TKO, and probably, I want to guess early, but actually I'm kind of leaning second or third round. I think Oban Elliott's going to try and prove toughness because he's probably on the verge of getting cut. What do you think, man?
yeah, I'm almost completely in agreement with you on this one. I think it's going to be Oliveira stoppage. But I could see it going into the second. I see a lot of people talking about first round finish here. But again, Elliott's one of those dogs. He doesn't.
Yes.
It's not like he's just going to lay down and quit. Oliveira, like you said, I think he maybe had that Tom Aspinall kind of vibe where he was soaking his knuckles in gasoline or whatever he was doing. So it is one of those, he touches you and you're going to go out. But I could see this being a round 2 or 3 finish. Yeah, I think that this is. It just Oliveira deadlier on the feet, longer reach. I guess we'll be able to see takedown defense in this one. I'm not gonna stand here and say that Elliott is Khabib when it comes to taking people down.
Yeah.
But I guess we haven't seen Oliveira's takedown defense as much as we've seen his striking accuracy. But yeah, I just see this one being too much pressure, too many strikes coming at Elliott. Oliveira's always hunting for the finishes. So I got to go with that debut guy. Knockout power. Probably agreeing with you round 2 or 3.
Yeah, and on top of that, Oliveira's carrying a 6.5 reach advantage, man. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be tough for Oban. But next up, man, we got Ludovit Klein versus Tofiq Musayev. Man, the first thing that we both talked about this week, man, Ludovit Klein is 5 years younger than Tofiq Musayev. I know Musayev has fought in other kind of organizations prior to the UFC, but man, I was like, I thought Ludovit Klein would be the old man. But nonetheless, man, I'm going with the old man here. I'm going with Ludovit Klein. I think Tofiq Musayev is not a bad fighter at all. I don't think he's great. I think Ludovit Klein is a good fighter. The only real loss is to Gamrot, and I think, oh man, I cannot remember who his loss before that was to. But nonetheless, man, I think Ludovit Klein still got it. I think he's still got the speed. I think he's got to piece him up, and he's got good enough takedown defense. That Gamrot fight, he had really good takedown defense until the later rounds, and then he just got wore out because Gamrot also has good striking. I don't think Tofiq has that striking to make Ludovit worn out. I think Ludovit's going to control it on the feet, keep him at distance, and maybe get it done, but I see this probably going to decision. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sit on the other side here. Musayev is, I'm kind of rocking with him. He's someone who comes from other organizations, and like we've said, with almost anybody who is coming from other organizations, it's hard to kind of, one for one the world class abilities. But he's coming from organizations like Bellator and Ryzen, who aren't the UFC, but are as close as you can get into the organization. He's not fighting on, Wagon Wheel FC in Georgia somewhere. Yeah. Like, he's not fighting in those kind of organizations. So he is tested with some legit people. He's got crazy finish ability. We're looking at the 19 or 18 knockouts, 14 first round finishes. I think that this is just going to come down to kind of like who's a little bit more hungry, and I think that this is just going to leave Musayev. He's great at countering. He has knockout power, finishing ability. He's also super strong in clinch. He's someone who, he might blitz you, try to throw some combos, and if he doesn't land a good shot against you, he'll just clinch up. He'll win some points on control there, maybe get a trip and take you down, and then just stand up and kind of repeat the process. So I'm going to lean Musayev on this one as long as he can kind of stick to his game plan. I see this one probably going the 15 if he doesn't do an early knockout, but I'm leaning Musayev here.
Yeah, man. I'm interested in this one. I think this will be a really good fight. Next up, we have Milos Janicic versus Noah Gugnon. This one's hard, man, because I really couldn't find that great a film to kind of go through. But yeah, I'm guess I'm leaning with Milos Janicic. He only really has one loss in MMA versus the other guy has two losses. I mean, my analysis on this one isn't that great, and on top of that, I'm a little confused on it being the opener for the main card. Maybe these guys will have a great throwdown fight. I see the vision with them being kind of finished artists, both of them in their records. But it's hard to make an analysis, so I'm just kind of leaning the favorite. I'm leaning with Milos. Has less losses. I see this being a banger, though. I mean, I would have to guess with them putting this where it's at on the card. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm again pretty much exactly with you. It's kind of hard finding good film to be watching on these guys. And I feel like it's kind of similar. They both have 100% finish rate in MMA careers. But I mean, you kind of see it in the odds as well. I think this is one of, if not maybe the closest fight on this entire card. And I think that the idea is because both of them are kind of unknowns right now. Neither one are completely battle tested against people that are UFC kind of, caliber. And they're both finishers. So it's one of those where it's just kind of like, hey, these guys should have a pretty fun fight. Let's put them up here at the top of the prelims. Hope that it kind of sets off the card pretty well. I gotta go Milos. I think he just has more kind of experience. I think is kind of my thought here. He has more experience, is a little bit older, but also like prime. I think he's 29, and that's like, if we're talking about prime for MMA careers, especially if you're not like a heavyweight, 29 is about as good as you can get. So even though he's a little bit of the older guy, it's not like he's pulling a Jan and he's 43 or whatever. He's going to be a little bit taller as well, and I think that kind of that length as well as a little bit more experience is going to just kind of favor him a little bit here.
Yeah, and last thing I'll mention is a 4-inch reach advantage for Milos too, so I think that'll help him as well. But yeah, man, actually, this is the first fight on the main card, is what I have it as. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm really shocked at the placement. But next up, man, we have Vlastislav, which in my end I see him as Vlasto, Seppo versus Gilbert Urbina, or as you like to call him, Urba. Yeah, man, I see Urbina, man, I'm calling him Urba now. I see Urbina just being a punching bag, man. I don't see him getting anything done. I see Seppo kind of getting this done. Probably early, man. Probably first or second round. I mean, he's had, Octagon is a legitimate organization, in my opinion. I don't think it's up there with Bellator, but I think or what Bellator was, but it's pretty up there. So I think he's going to get it done here against Urbina. I think Urbina is just a punching bag, doesn't have good striking defense, and unless he catches you, man, it's going to be a tough night, man. So I see Seppo getting this done in either the first or second round. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Early on, I kind of said that I was going to jump off that Serbia train, but here's another Serbia debut. So I guess I'm just riding it to wherever it ends here. But it's,
Serbian,
I might be finding my click here in the UFC. So we'll see how all of these guys start to turn out. But yeah, I think that this is going to be a Seppo. It's just, he's crazy aggressive with his starting, heavy hands. He's another person with 100% finish rate with his wins in MMA. I think that's just going to be an issue. Urbina likes to trade, which I think is going to be an issue. He's one of those kind of, I just want to stand and bang kind of guys, and I don't necessarily think that's going to be something that you want to do with Seppo here. I think that this is just going to come down to, I mean, Urbina maybe can get like some takedowns mixed in or something like that. He does have some subs, so like you can't say that he doesn't have any ground or any takedowns. But really, I think that's like the only way that I could see Urbina doing anything here would be getting a takedown and just kind of holding him for no reason. So yeah, I got to rock with you on this one too. I think this is going to be a Seppo. A pretty good bet for this one would be a KO TKO finish.
Yep, agree with you, man. Agree with you. All right, next up, we have Dusko Todorovic versus Robert Valentine. So first things first, Robert Valentine has a very interesting life outside the UFC. Quite a controversial man. And additionally, I want to mention, a little throwback to one of our first vids, Dusko has lost to Zachary Reese. What? Anyone who loses to Zachary Reese, immediately banned from UFC, in my opinion. I'm going with Robert Valentine to get this done. I would not be shocked if this goes to decision. But I'm gonna hope I hope he gets him out of here. I hope he gets it done. Maybe first or second round, maybe on the ground by submission. But I don't know, man. Either way, I see Valentine taking this home. What do you think, man?
I'm gonna rock with the Dusko side here. This one when I was kind of breaking it down and watching some film, I kind of had this one going pretty 50-50. I guess again this was one that I just kind of started going. You know what, Dusko has KO power. He's got 8 first round finishes. It just is. I think he has 10 fights now, eight or 10 fights in the UFC. So again, it's just one of those people who has the experience, kind of for better or worse, in the UFC. He's got a good clinch game as well. Someone who could use some clinch and maybe get some takedowns and just kind of like let him back up. I don't think that this is necessarily someone you're going to want to stand and bang with as well. But Dusko, he's got a higher output. He's got good clinch work. This one is one that I'm curious to see because I think this is the right fight for both of these guys, if that makes sense.
Yes,
I think that
I
this
agree.
is going to be a good one to kind of show, is this dude ready for kind of a step up in competition, or is this guy just going to stay kind of where he is?
Yeah.
And I think this is a good fight to decide which direction that these guys are going with their career.
Yep, completely agree with you, man. Completely agree with you. All right, next up, we have Alexander Rakic making his heavyweight debut versus Marcin Tybura. Yeah, man. I think we're both thinking the same thing here. We're leaning with Alexander Rakic. I'm a little surprised at the odds. I was hoping more people would see the blob fest from Tybura and just think that Rakic is so goofy he would just end up on bottom and be blobbed, which maybe could happen. But I think the days of the blob are ending for Tybura. I think he's getting too old. And I think Rakic is going to be, as long as he puts the weight on appropriately, which from what I've seen in pictures and stuff, he looks good, big, and fit. I think he's going to be fast. I think he's going to get this done by finish, first or second round. I think he's going to get it done. He has decent striking. The only thing he's really susceptible to is being goofy and being hittable. And so in that sense, I don't see Tybura capitalizing on that. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with you. I got to go with Rakic on this one. He was always a big light heavyweight, so I think that he has the frame to put on weight to go to heavyweight well. He's not someone who's just kind of like, I'm not doing too well at light heavyweight. I'm just gonna put weight on and see what happens. So like you said, as long as he kind of puts that weight on correctly, has really been putting rounds in to kind of see how his body is feeling carrying that extra weight. I see that this one really just kind of coming down to, can Rakic keep this on the feet and at some distance? Tybura does have some stopping power and that kind of stuff. I would probably definitely lean. He's a better grappler. Now, is this prime Tybura that we saw 4, 5, 6 years ago? Probably not. Obviously, he lost to apparently one of the goats in Fortune's last
Tyrell
fight.
Fortune, man.
So hey, we saw what happened with him last time. So apparently fought through like a punctured lung that he's screaming to his coach about. I think that this is just going to be one of those. Rakic needs a win. It's not like this is the young buck on a 8 fight win streak moving up a weight class by any means, but Tybor is just the older guy here. Yeah, he has the experience, but he's going to be the smaller guy. Reach is, I think, identical, if not very close.
Yeah,
But yeah,
identical.
as long as Rakic keeps it on the feet, puts on that weight, well, because if he puts on the weight well, then I think his grappling defense will be pretty much right there with what Tybor can offer at his age offensively. So yeah, I'm leaning Rakic on this one. Probably decision. I don't know if I see either one of these guys necessarily getting a stop unless it's maybe Rakic stopping Tybora like towards the end of the fight, just kind of overwhelming punches type of finish. I don't really necessarily seeing either one of these guys, knocking the other one's head clean off.
Gotcha. All right, next up, we have our co-main event, Jan Blachowicz versus Navajo Sterling, who is a late replacement. So yeah, I mean, Jan Blachowicz was supposed to fight Guskov. They had that breakdown with Roundtree last week, so they moved Guskov over there. Horrible fight. Cried while watching it. But now we have Blachowicz versus Sterling, which I think is a worse matchup for him, honestly. I think Sterling is young and hungry. I think Blachowicz is old. I think he's lost his momentum. I think it'd be different if he wasn't coming off. I mean, I don't know what I'm saying, man. Maybe if he's coming off rough losses, I think it'd be the same thing. I think he's just getting too old, and Sterling's too hungry, and he has decent enough striking defense. And Blachowicz just doesn't have the speed anymore. He looks slow. He's just going to stand there. His fight against Ulberg was very close, yes, but Ulberg did not push the issue. I think Sterling's going to push the issue and get this done. Maybe it goes to decision, but I see Sterling controlling this fight and putting on the pressure. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with this one. It's hard for me to say. Jan was one of my favorite at the weight class when he was champion. He's one of those there to fight and just kind of good dudes. If you follow the UFC and you kind of watch anything outside of the octagon as well, he's a good dude kind of thing. So it sucks when you start to see those old heads who maybe stick around a little bit too long. Sterling is kind of that short notice, but you also can't put a whole lot on the short notice because I believe he had a fight maybe next month or something already lined up. So it's not like they just called him and he was sitting on, the beach in Cabo and was like, hey, jump on a plane and be here.
Yeah, he fought at the end of June. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there you go. So he fought recently. I want to say maybe I saw a fight announcement before this one even came through. So it's not like he's gonna have any ring rust. He's maybe took a couple weeks off, but someone who's young and kind of hungry like this, they're not taking months off between fights. They want to get these fights. They want to start moving up through the ranking. I think that this is just gonna come down to the kind of he's 15 years younger. He's the bigger guy as well with height and reach, not by much, but he is the bigger guy. So when you're talking about slight advantage on height and reach, as well as 15 years and just hungrier, maybe Jan is going to kind of throw the spiderweb conversations of like, I'm here to show, why I was the champion at one point, but are you the Jan of the champion age? I don't think so. I think that he is on his way out. I think that everyone kind of sees it. I think he's just sticking around a little bit too long at this point. I'm going Sterling on this one. Probably by I'll say a TKO. Just to kind of hedge my bets here. I wouldn't doubt seeing it go to a decision. Something that I noticed when I was kind of looking at some bets earlier too was Jan by KO TK was a plus 350 last time I checked, which is like, if he wins, I think that's the only way he's going to win.
Yeah.
I don't see Jan really getting a submission here, and I don't see him beating the younger, longer guy in points. So, if you got an extra $10 or something like that and you want to sprinkle in a Jan KO TKO, I might do something similar. I'm not too upset with that line, but yeah, I think I'm picking Sterling to win this one.
Yeah, man, I agree with you completely. That's not a bad. If you want to just throw some money, maybe have a lucky chance. Yeah, I agree with you. All right, we have our main event: Uros Medic versus Jailbird Daniel Rodriguez. So Daniel Rodriguez coming off that unfortunate stint in Mexico. Oh, I think we have the odds messed up here. Is it supposed to be plus for Rodriguez, correct?
Yeah, it should be.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, no worries. Nonetheless, I kind of agree with the odds here for the most part. I think Medic is... I really don't see Rodriguez having much for him. I was trying to lean Rodriguez, but the more I looked into it, I'm just like... Rodriguez can really only capitalize on old guys getting out of the game. Had a good win against Holland like a year ago, man, over a year ago now. And Holland's getting out of the game. Same thing with Ponzinibbio, getting out of the game. Same thing with Morono back in 2024, kind of getting out of the game. I think Medic is the younger guy. I think he's the faster guy, coming off some momentum with that TKO KO of Neal back in February. And that was a beautiful knockout. Please go look up that YouTube video if you haven't. But like you were saying, man, it seems like guys who are able to finish Neal become a superstar. So I'm going to go with that kind of methodology. I'm going to lean Medic. What do you got for me, man? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm completely agreeing with you here. Now, this is someone that I can say home court advantage with Serbia. Not a debut, though, so I mix it up here at the end.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with you. He's going to be the younger guy. He's good pretty much all over. Maybe doesn't have as many submissions when you're looking at just straight stats as Rodriguez. But he has a good ground game as well. He's got great hands. He starts super fast, good combo puncher. I'm not going to sit here and say that he is the better grappler, but he does have grappling. Like, it's not like he's just going to, D-Rod's not going to grab a hold of him and Medic is just going to, fall apart. So I think that's going to kind of what this is going to come down to. And like you said, not to mention, Rodriguez, I think he spent 8-9 months in jail. So it's like, yeah, you got some jailhouse workouts, but I think he's been out for like 8 weeks or something like that, 6-8 weeks. So, most of these guys at the professional level are putting a minimum of 8, maybe even 3 months worth of, real training camp in. He wasn't able to get that. So,
Yeah.
what did his nutrition look like in jail? Like that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously he doesn't have a professional nutritionist, helping him through camp. So it's going to be, I think he's going to have less time to prepare. He's also just, I think, going to be kind of overwhelmed. Has a little bit longer of a reach, but is the older guy. He gets
Yep.
hit a good amount, and Medic has some good stopping power.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm leaning Medic probably like around 2 TKO, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Yeah, Rodriguez being 6 years older, man, almost 7. But yeah, I completely agree with you. All right, let's wrap this up. We have old Rod and Dr. Medic on the screen here. But let's get into the bets we have. What do you have for me, man? What are the good bets for this?
Yeah, this one was one that I kind of had to start digging around. I also noticed typically FanDuel is the one that I use a lot of. It's just kind of cleaner as an app. We don't have to get into logistics of the sports book, UI, but FanDuel doesn't have props out right now. So I took a lot of this information from DraftKings this time. I think that Oliveira is going to be the safe bet here. That's what I did on this one. I gave you 3. I kind of went with a safe bet. I pieced together some to give you what I think is a safe bet, but a little bit better of a payout, and then one that is a again, I'm not taking anything that I think's too crazy here.
Mm-hmm.
So, an Oliveira by KO TKO, I think that's the way that this fight's going to get done. Maybe not first round or nothing, so I didn't put no round parlays with this. But a minus 140 on a KO TKO with someone like Oliveira's hands, I think is a pretty safe bet. I got the parlay of Seppo and Klein. Seppo by KO TKO, and then on DraftKings I took a Klein by the I don't remember what they call it, but it's like the double chance, basically. So it's his finish of KO, TKO, or it goes to a decision. When you parlay those two together, you get that plus 108. And then again, something that gives you a little bit more money, but I think is still pretty likely to happen. It's going to be the Grad, Milos, and Medic money line, just across the board on those guys. It's going to give you the 260 plus 261. And then if you want to throw that one that I said earlier with the Jan by KO, TKO for a plus 350, not a bad thing to sprinkle a little bit of winnings that you might make from the Oliveira fight.
Nice, man. Yeah, I like these. I like the breakdown. I think you're right. That last parlay, the Grad, Milos, and Medic. I don't think that's a bad parlay at all. I think that's totally likely to happen. But yeah, man, that's it. That's our predictions for this week. We'll be back again next week. Let us know what you think. Leave a like, leave a comment. We'll be right back again next Thursday. See you guys.